Hi there, this is David Ingleby for Dingo Servo Mounts, and today we're going to be looking at assembling a Dingo servo mount. Now this is one of our early mounts. It's been a really good mount. It's been going for many years, and so the instructions are a little bit out of date, not in terms of how they work, but in the way they're presented. And so in order to assemble this mount, you will need a kit, a single signal kit, and you will also need the instructions. Like I said, these instructions are quite old and they're a bit laid out a bit weird, but essentially it all works. These will get revised at some stage. Right, so to start off, it's always useful to go to the back page where you will see a table of all the parts that are in the kit and also a picture of what they look like. So we open the kit, take out all the bits. I always do this on a tray so I don't lose things on the floor. Some of these little screws can get lost in the carpet if they fall off, so it's quite good to have them all in one place. You will also need a 9-gram servo. I'm using a Tower Pro today. This is a Tower Pro SG90. You could also use a Hobby King HK 15178. You will also need a posi drive screwdriver. You will need a pair of long nose pliers for this particular mount. You will need some form of servo testers. I use these little blue ones. They work quite well, and a little battery pack so it's easy to move it around. And that's about all we need. So let's crack on. Oh, one other thing we'll need is our trusty bending block. Now, this is just a block of wood that I use for bending up mounts. Now, the way this mount works is we start off in that direction. This is what we call the foot plate. That's the piece that will mount underneath your baseboard. And so in order to get this mount right, we bend this one down that way. It's very simple to do. A little bit of pressure, a little bit of tweaking to get that to 90 degrees. There we go. That's 90 degrees. Remember, with aluminium you can only bend it once, so don't bend it the wrong way. Make sure you get it right. So holding it that way, that file goes over that way. Then we turn it upside down and we fold the other two wings down off our block like that. Now with the wings, don't fold them all the way in, fold them about part way like that. That works very well. Right, now we can get rid of the bending block, because the rest of the bending we have to do with a pair of long nose pliers because it's quite small. What I would suggest you do at this moment in time is to fit the switch. You'll need the nut plate, the switch, and the two long screws, M2x10 screws. One's still stuck in the packet, I think. There we go. So we put the screw through the switch like that, and just run the nut plate on the back a little bit. Whoops, messed that up. It's always a bit tricky when you're working with a camera between you and what you're doing. So once we get that in, screw that up there. It's always easier to fit these things while you've got the unit unencumbered, so to speak, because once you get all the motors and stuff on, it gets a little bit more tricky to put it in. So we'll put that in and lock it up into place in its extremity all the way down to the bottom. Right, the next thing we need to do is to take our motor, and we fit our motor in that way around, so the spindle is at the bottom, and there are two M2x6 screws in the pack. It's probably easier to put the screw into the motor here at the back first, and then to drop it through the hole and put a screwdriver in there. And just, whoops, get it right in a minute. brought it up. It's a little tricky to get that one in. Don't take it all the way home, part of the way home, and then put the other one in. And once they're both in the threads nicely, you can run them up tight, and that will be all in its place. Right, the next thing we need to do is to get hold of a little packet from the Servo box and take out the single horn, which is that little one there, and we'll also have the little tiny screw that comes with the Servo that screws that into the what's name. Now we need to hook up our Servo to the Servo tester. Always make sure the servo is working nicely, not making too much racket. Some of these do tend to be a bit noisy. And then if you press that switch there, it puts it into the center light there, and that means that the servo is now centered. And we can now fit the horn onto the motor in more or less that position. You might find that it doesn't go exactly horizontal, but it's not the end of the world. Get it as close to horizontal as you can. My screwdriver's got a bit magnetic for some reason. Again, like I said, tricky to work with the camera in between your hands and your face. Lock that in. Excellent. And there we go. That's all operating perfectly smoothly. Okay, we can disconnect the servo for a moment. The next thing we need to look at is the slider. Now the slider has 3 tapped holes over there, which will be used just now, and another hole over there. Now it's a good question now is to figure out which way you're going to operate your actuator wire. If you're going to just lock it in belt and bracer style, then you need to put 3 little screws in those 3 holes there, and the wire will then slide down between them, and you lock them up and hold it in position. If you're going to use a magnet with a movable thing, then you need to take the magnet, which is that little baby over there, off the back of the insert, and super glue it to that pad over there. And then you will need to fold up this little piece to form a slide. And that will then form a slide over there and allow you to slide the actuator wire there, and it'll then lock onto the magnet there, so you'll be able to adjust it that way. The third option is to do what I've done here, where this piece at the bottom here is folded up, the magnet is again glued onto that, and then with this little bracket here, your actuator wire, it must be a steel wire obviously, will slide through there, which means that you can then take it off. If you've got a portable layout, you can then take it off, your signal off at the end of the day, and when you're ready to run it again, you can drop it back in, and the wire will then drop in there and lock onto the magnet there. So that's entirely up to you as to how you want to do that. Let's just have a little look at this plate. So this is going to go into the frame that way around, right? So that will be at the top, this will be at the bottom. Now if you're going to use this little piece, then you need to, it's going to line up with those 3 holes there. Here's my little screwdriver. Those 3 holes there will line up with the 3 holes in there. So you need to look at it from a sensible point of view and say, if I want that to line there, then I need to fold that piece up. And it's quite easy to hold it with a pair of long nose pliers. So the 3 holes are aligned there, that way around, and then I just fold it towards me like that, and then turn it around and fold the other one. That's all you need to do. Just very carefully fold it to 90 degrees. There. So now if we fit that to the unit there like that, those 3 holes will line up, and it makes perfect sense. Okay, again, this piece here you can fold up if you want to use this as a magnetic option. I'm not going to build a magnetic option now because you've seen one in this mount here. That is the magnetic option with the pull-out wire. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use the standard belt and braces option. So I'm going to put these 3 screws in that way like that. And with these little screws, it's always good to put the screw onto your screwdriver and then just run it into the hole like that. Don't screw them all the way in. Seem to have lost one here somewhere. There it is. So we'll put those 3 in like that. Again, making sure that you've got this around the right way to go in like that. Okay, the other thing you need to do is you need to put in the this copper or brass standoff, which screws into the back of the unit like so, all the way in. And if you want to make sure that it doesn't come off, you can run a little nut onto the top of it, and again with a twist of the good old long nose pliers, you can make sure that that's locked in and it won't come off again. Right, then we can fit this into here, and again what I suggest you do is you push it into one side and then fold these arms back in gently and slowly until it slides across into the other side. It will only slide across once these bars are bent vertical, or at least perpendicular to the back plane. And it's a little fiddly, but you'll get it to a point where it slides very nicely. We have one more thing to do, and that is to put this little drive screw, there it is, that needs to go through into the bar at the back, and probably about the 2nd or 3rd hole from the center. This is a little bit fiddly at times, but not impossible to lock onto that bar there. Screw it in, not too deep, but deep enough to make sure that it holds. And that is the screw that's actually going to drive the servo. So here we go, we put that on again, and it then drives the unit up and down. So you could have it set like that, with your actuator wire coming in there, being locked in those things there. Alternatively, you could have it as this one is. I'll just pop this one on here, which shows you the magnetic option, which works just as well. So that is our signal mount. It's marked up at this moment in time to revision 1A. That's because we've changed a few things along the way, but that is what we've been setting now for the last 2 years or so, and it's a very, very well used mount, and everybody loves it very much. So there we go. Thank you for watching.